We're here today at St George's Park. We're with Alan Ferguson, who's Head of Grounds and Estates here. Alan, thanks for your time.
You're
I'm
welcome.
sure it's very busy here today. I think you're in the middle of a tournament.
Yeah, we are with World Championships. It's a counter for the Rio Olympics, so fairly major event in the world of disabled football, and it is the largest disabled football tournament ever to be held in England. So it's a biggie.
Well, let's talk about some of the facilities you've got here. I think the total facility is about 330 acres.
That's correct, yeah.
And that's made up of, I think, 12 full-size practice pitches?
We are now, as we talk now, we are 14 different pitches, and Tuesday of next week we'll see us start construction on the 15th pitch on the park. Okay. So we haven't stood still, and that demand has been driven by the new coach education programme and just a need for more playable hours. So upgrading existing pitches and adding to the existing group of pitches.
So within that mix of pitches, as I understand it, and correct me if I'm wrong, Alan, one, you've got an exact replica of Wembley.
We have, yeah.
And also you've got replicas of the types of surfaces that England teams may play on around the world.
Yeah. Part of the park's philosophy through our pitch working group, which comprises my managing director, finance manager, we've got a project manager, commercial manager who's sat at the next table down there, and the head of grassroots football and myself. Part of that philosophy is to try and unearth all the latest developments in pitch technology and pitch development and incorporate them onto the park. Now, we've done that, we're constantly doing that. To give you an example, the new Cis Grass alternative to Deso Grassmaster, I watched that for 2 years in its development, and 5 weeks ago we became the first Cis Grass pitch user in the world, which we'll be quite happy to show you later on. That's the sort of thing we do. The synthetic pitch that starts next week will be from field turf. That will give us one of 3 different types, so we've got SIS grass, Deso, and now field turf on the park as well. Because in the professional game, all teams at all levels, and the ladies would be a fantastic example, because here they are now in Canada playing in the FIFA World Cup on synthetic turf. So our aim is to try and give all the players, male and female, wherever they're going to play, a chance to prepare as thoroughly as they can on as nearly identical surface.
Alan, as well as the pitches here, synthetic and natural and hybrid, you have other responsibilities for the estate as well. And I believe there's quite a focus on biodiversity and the environment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. When I came to St George's Park, it was as head groundsman back in 2011, when I came up from Ipswich. And my role then was just to bring the pitches back to life. For those not familiar with the history of St George's Park, they tried to construct the park back in the early 2000s, but it was done at the same time they were redeveloping Wembley. And for financial reasons, which were well documented at the time, this was put on hold. They took a decision around 2008, the board, to go ahead again. But it wasn't until 2010 that budgets and planning permissions were all back in place as they should be, to allow the ground to be broken and start on it. The pitches bit we did. The wider estate in the 330 acres was a constant challenge. We had a number of contractors working in different areas as the place was under general construction. But as we got towards the end of that construction, it became quite obvious that it wasn't going to be doable to have all these contractors there, and I was asked to broaden my role, to change my title from head groundsman to head of grounds and estates, to try and take all that into being, which I've been quite happy to do. Quite a challenge, quite an enjoyable challenge.
And a big learning curve.
Massive learning curve. It takes me back to my golf days when I was at St Andrews and Bathgate Golf Club, where you did have to look after areas, part of the course, but not part of the fairways or the tees or the greens, and regenerate areas. But we live in an age now where the environment's everything, and massive green lobbies about the place, and we're sitting slap bang in the middle of the national forest, so you can start to begin to imagine some of the challenges we've had here. I've learned things that I never even knew existed. The biodiversity here is as wide ranging here as I think you'd find it anywhere, but we have to care for things from great crested newts to barn owls, badgers, even foxes. You name it, we have to do it. We have to try and regenerate wild flora. We have migrating birds that come across 2 lakes that are located on the park here. So it's quite an in-depth thing I do. I sit on what is called the biodiversity group. I have a guy on my staff who is an ecologist, we got him from Natural England. He came in as a general estate worker, but we brought him in because he had worked in a previous environment, and he's now almost like our in-house ecologist, working with the FA's sort of consultant ecologists, making sure that we meet our legislative requirements across the park, which we do, and we do well.
That's a big challenge in itself, surely.
Huge challenge, because the world watches you, and because we're the FA, we're seen as a bit of a target. Yeah. So we have to make sure we nail everything absolutely properly, which we do. There's a number of people we can consult. We have a traffic light system in place now, so green is where my pitches are on the park. I can pretty much dictate what happens and when it happens there. There's amber areas where I need to make a phone call just to check that is okay, and there's red areas. There's red areas where we have to go through a proper process. If work needs doing, then I can do it.
You mentioned the guy that you've got on the team as an ecologist. What sort of size team have you got here helping you look after the 15 pitches now?
Yeah, we're not as big as I'd like us to be. My aim back in 2011 was for the staff and the maintenance programmes to grow in line with the business, but it's been so popular, which is great. The business has shot off, and we've been playing catch up. We are catching up. And I think the group of 14 that I have now will be 15 by the end of August. I think we need to be in the low 20s. When I compare us to like-minded facilities at Manchester City, United, Chelsea, Tottenham, Arsenal, you may be getting sort of mid-20s, high 30s as staff at seasonal times of the year. But an average of 25, 26 people. We're 14. And of that group of 14, 3 are estate workers and 1's my coordinator. Right. So there's 10 groundsmen looking after all these pitches.
And you have probably more pitches than most of the clubs you mentioned.
I think we probably have a similar amount of pitches. Right. Where we differ is we have a lot of off-pitch area in the wider estate. So if I give you Tottenham's new Enfield facility, which is fantastic,
it is,
fabulous facility, and Darren and his team down there have done a fantastic job bringing that to life and making it what it is. But it's on about 80 acres. I've got the same 80 acres worth of pitches, but I've got the rest of the estate in the 330 acre footprint. So and all requiring some sort of maintenance, and we're still developing as we go forward. There are a number of other bits of infrastructure that have been added to and that'll go on probably through to the end of the 17-18 season before we get to the end of what we've called the first phase of development.
You mentioned Darren Baldwin at Tottenham. Do you have much interaction with other elite groundsmen?
Yeah, I do. I think we always have done, but I think Darren would be the first to admit, along with maybe Steve Braddock at Colney, Roy Rigby up at Man City, Tony at Man United. I think these guys would all be the first to admit that the size and scale of the operations they look after now were way beyond what they ever imagined they could be, and I'm no different to that. So it's fantastic to be able to lift the phone or ping off an email and network with these guys, because we've all got the same problems. That they'll have various planning issues as I've had. We've got same maintenance issues. I think we've probably got the biggest commercial operation, and I know some of their clubs now are looking to cash in on some of these facilities. So where it was a club-only operation, I think they're opening their doors up to more commercial activity, to try and generate income through the clubs as they develop stadia and add to their existing training facilities.
Let's talk about what's led you to this point, the career you've had in turf care to date.
Yeah.
Started out at St Andrews?
I did, yeah.
Was that an apprenticeship?
It was, yeah. It was apprentice greenkeeper on the old course. My father was a master craftsman, joiner, carpenter.
Right.
And I had the opportunity to follow him, but I'm useless, and if I'm honest, I had no big interest in that. My grandfather was a gardener and looked after a number of country houses in and around St Andrews. And one of the things that fascinated me was when he mowed the lawns, was getting the stripes in the lawns. And through that, and through some associates of his, I got into the golf greenkeeping side and loved it. I knew pretty much from the age of sort of 11, 12 years old pretty much what I wanted to do, and it was amazing, absolutely amazing. I had a great time at St Andrews. My mother still lives up there, and I'm hoping to go up in July and see her and see a bit of the golf at the Open as well. I did the 78 Open there, the 90-80 Colgate PGA, and loved every minute of it before moving to Bathgate Golf Club as the head greenkeeper, which is Bernard Gallagher's home club outside Edinburgh. And it was while I was at Bathgate I started getting more and more involved with a company called Sports Turf Services. It was run by a gentleman called Mike Eddington.
That was a contractor, was it?
Contractor, yeah. And they did golf and football. And there was an opportunity came up there in the sort of mid-late 80s to join Sports Stuff Services as an assistant contracts manager. Still working in golf, but working more in football. And at that time, football was changing. Sky Sports and satellite television was changing how the game was perceived and viewed. And they didn't want muddy pitches, they wanted lovely green bases to go out on TV. And they wanted that all year round. And the groundsman of that time would be sort of cleaning the stands, washing the toilets, and when he had a bit of time left, he would do the pitch. And hence the reason the pitches weren't great. But that changed, and I was one of a number of greenkeepers at the time that was given the opportunity to come over into football. Took it through Sports Stuff Services first. Rangers was one of our contracts. Had an opportunity to go into Rangers as I was called a pitch superintendent. We still had a head groundsman there, who's still the head groundsman today. But for a number of reasons, the project didn't move as quickly as what the club wanted it. Largely financial reasons, and their finances have been well documented over the last 2 or 3 years. But they still had issues back then. But it allowed me to get my feet into football. Rangers was a great experience. We changed the pitch in the 91-92 season. First time I met John Mallinson. I've done 3 major projects with John now, including here at St George's Park. And I went from Rangers down to Ipswich Town, had 16 fantastic years at Portman Road with David Sheepshanks and managers like George Burley, Joe Royal, Jim Magilton, Paul Jewell, Roy Keane, which was an interesting experience. Great guy, you know, but he gets some criticism, but you know, a more honest man you'll never meet, like, you know. And through my time
another passionate guy, I think, as well.
Aye, very much so. And through that, you know, I got into UEFA, working part-time as a natural turf consultant. I've done that for 12 years, something I really hugely enjoy, trying to put something into other areas of the game out with this country, and met some wonderful people. So that's my career to date here. I've been at St George's now since 2011. I've got a great managing director who came from horse racing, so understood big spaces, big green spaces, backed me fantastically well. I've got a pitch working group who are not from grass but enthusiastic, and I've been able to help them. They've helped me with some of their skills, and I think as a group we complement each other really, really well. I've learned things from them, they've learned things from me, and I think, you know, as a group we're taking St George's forward as a project really well. It's one of, I think, 22 places in the world with a range of facility in one place that we have here. Our challenge is to keep it world class.
Sure.
And that's very much our group focus, is to do that. The board back us. You'll see when you go around the facilities when you're here, they are incredible facilities. You know, we're hosting this World Championship. There are not many places in the world could host a championship like we're doing just now, and that'll be more of our life. So that's my career path.